Good evening and welcome to On Point with Ellen Whippy-Knight, where we talk to inspirational Fijians wherever they may be. The First Minister for Women, vocal about domestic violence, care for the elderly and child protection. Minister, welcome to the show.
Vuniwaqa, Ellen.
How are you today?
Good, thank you.
That's good. I do like what you're wearing. I always make these comments because, you know, I have this interest that I have in fashion. But where did you get that from?
Oh, this was from New York.
Oh, right. Yeah, very good, very good. Well, hopefully one day we will have you on the show wearing a local designer's dress.
Yes, I do that too, often.
Yes, I know you do. I know you do. Because the last time I saw you was at the Super Grammar School reunion launch, and you had a wonderful dress on there with, you know, from a local designer. You are now in the world of politics. You started your life as a lawyer. What was the change and why?
Okay, politics. You know, Ellen, I've wanted to be so many things growing up as a child.
Right.
I remember at one stage I wanted to be a nun, I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to be so many things, like every child, I guess.
Right.
Politics was never part of the dream. So yes, I'm a Christian, and I believe that we get called to places we would never have dreamt of, to do certain things we never dreamt of when we were growing up. And for me, it was the Honorable Prime Minister that actually invited me to stand for elections in 2014, and my life took a turn.
Right, and you didn't hesitate?
I did for a while. But what he said to me really pushed me to say yes. He said he wanted more women.
Right.
Women to speak in Parliament, and that's what drove me.
But you also must have felt that you had something to give, something to offer. What was that?
Looking back now, I have no doubt that the education I had, the career I had, it prepared me for this. So I believe that there's a lot that I can offer to the political space, and I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to be doing that for the Fijian people right now.
You're an amazing example to young women, because since 2014, you have made so much progress in the work that you've been doing. And one of the other unusual things about you was that you were in the elections and you were opposing candidates in that Vakandrove area that were family, that were friends, and that were so popular people thought that they would win. But then you did. What was the strategy that you used?
It wasn't easy, Ellen, but I guess in Fiji we have the great advantage of having our families, our communities, and having a connection with that community from childhood was very important in my case. Not only because I was basically an unknown woman, and politics was a new thing for me, and yes, you're right, there were people from the opposition who were more popular in that space. So I rest on that connection that I had with the people in the
But you must have done something. You must have, in you know, that strategy, you obviously went out into the field.
Yes.
What did you promote about yourself that won that vote for you?
I don't see politics as I'm better than so-and-so.
Right.
For me, it wasn't like that. I rested on the policies of the Fiji First Party. I drove through equality. I went through and I basically showed the lies that were out in that space, particularly in relation to matters that were very, very critical to us,
and
particularly the Itauke people in 2014.
Right.
This was in relation to land,
Yes.
the fear-mongering about Itauke people losing land. So that was something that was very important to the communities that I went into. So for me, it was to dispel those fears, to basically rest on the constitutional provisions, to rest on the laws that were in place, to dispel those fears.
Right.
That was the strategy.
And that was really at the heart of every Fijian, and could be of anybody in any country, is to lose your land. You then, your party won, Fiji First won that election. Your position was, you were awarded the position of Minister for Land, and that whole area was such a tenuous political, minefield. How did you change people's views to instill in them that the land is still there, it is theirs, and it won't be any other way?
I guess with the Ministry of Land portfolio, the portfolio is really just to do with state land. Itauke land is looked after by the Itauke Land Trust Board. And again, that was another space. When I moved ministries from lands to Ministry of Women, a lot of people were saying, now we're going to lose our land because she's gone. Who's going to look after that? But it's again it is the popular thinking out there that Ministry of Lands looks after Itauke land. It doesn't. It looks after state land only. It was a challenge. There are challenges within the Ministry of Lands like any other ministry in government, and as minister I did my best to deal with those issues as and when they cropped up.
Well, you've been very, very popular. How do you handle the popularity?
I don't see myself as a popular person, Ellen. A lot of people think that being a politician is about popularity. For me, it's first and foremost about service.
I mean, you're a mother of 3 children as well. And you have a husband who works.
Absolutely.
Within government as well.
And therein, every mother, a working mother, would face challenges that would be unique to women, and it takes some kind of special kind of skills to handle that, which we women are blessed with.
Yes. Exactly. In recent times, you've also become quite popular, in the community, and one of the things that people have mentioned about you is your ability to be able to pull together all sectors of the government and the community, NGOs and likewise, together to work, as one. Did you realize you were doing that?
That was a strategy that had to be done.
Absolutely.
It was a necessity, particularly in a ministry like the Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, dealing with social issues. There's no way that any government can do this alone. We've got to work in strong partnership with non-government sector, civil society and development partners. That was critical. And I'm just so grateful that when I went out, I put my hand out to these non-government organizations that they were ready to step up and do their bit.
Yes, and I think people only do that if they trust the person that is standing in front of them.
Yeah, again, I think, Ellen, as politicians, it's very important to be genuine. Very important to be genuine, to say things that you mean and see it through. Humility is also very important. And I guess sometimes we get to lose sight of that, but I try on a daily basis to do that in relation to the work that I do.
That's excellent. We're going to take a quick break. You're on point with Ellen Whippy-Knight and Mereseini Vuniwaqa, the Minister for Women, and we shall be back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to On Point with Ellen Whippy-Knight and the Minister for Women, Mereseini Vuniwaqa. Minister, your actual portfolio is the Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, and you also look after disability and elderly. And one of the things that you're focusing on at the moment is eliminating violence against women. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I think, Ellen, we know these social cancer that we're dealing with, violence against women. Fiji Women's Rights Movement, about 8 years ago, produced a report, Somebody's Life, Everybody's Business. And it showed statistics that's really of great concern to government and to the nation as a whole. We're looking at about 72% of women who have in their lifetime in Fiji have suffered one form of violence, some sort of violence, from their spouses or intimate partners.
That's very high, isn't it?
Very high. If you look at the world average, it's 1 in 3 women. For us, we're looking at about 2 in 3 women.
Right.
And that's where the problem lies. So it's something that we've been grappling with as a nation. So I'm glad that we have laws in place, like the Domestic Violence Act in 2009, that for the first time recognized this as a unique issue that we needed to address through a specific law. And that's in place. After that, there have been programs, the Domestic Violence Helpline, 1560, and we've got great non-government organizations that have been doing great work in this space.
Right.
The
Is that like the Fiji Women's Crisis Center?
Fiji Women's Crisis Center. I'm sorry, the report I referred to was by the Fiji Women's Crisis
Shamima
Center.
Ali.
Yes, yes, somebody's life, everybody's business.
Yes.
So the statistics speaks volumes.
Why? Why is it so? I mean, I do know that Fiji has one of the highest rates of domestic violence, gender, that's men against women, in the Pacific. We're in the year 2019. Why is this still so? We're a much more developed country than we were 20 years ago.
Unfortunately, it's not to do with infrastructure or capital. It has to do with mindsets. It goes back to the basics of gender inequality. How we perceive women to be responsible for certain roles, like caregiving, for example, taking care of people that we love, and men are supposed to go and work. And when these kinds of power relations change, it's what that leads to domestic violence. There are a lot of reasons, contributing factors to this. But at the platform, the basis of it is basically a change in the power relations between men and women.
So how do we do that? Is it a matter of saying, it can't be as simple as saying to men, you can't hit your wife anymore. It's not as simple as that, is it?
It's not. It requires every stakeholder to play their part. You've got the law, you've got the police who have a role to play, you've got legal aid for women to access justice if something happens to them. You've got the medical sector, you've got the non-government sector for counseling, etc. So everybody needs to play their part. And I'm really thankful that we have a national elimination of violence against women task force. They've been doing great work in this space.
Is that within the police force, a task force?
It's chaired by the police force, but they're basically government agencies and non-government organizations as well. And they've come up, for example, with a protocol. It's our first Fiji National Service Delivery Protocol.
This is the Fiji National Service Delivery Protocol for responding to cases of gender-based violence.
Yes.
Who put that together?
So it's this national agency called the Elimination of Violence Against Women Task Force.
That's available to anybody who wants it?
It's available. It's at the ministry. So basically it's for the agencies that have a role to play in this space. It aligns the work that they do and puts in place minimum standards of what their service should be when they're delivering this particular service to victims.
I think the most concerning thing about this all is the effect that it has on the immediate family and children in particular, because they say you only do as your parents do. Are we breeding a nation of children who will then grow up and do what their fathers did, particularly if they are young boys?
Children do what they see their parents do.
Absolutely.
And you're right, Ellen. A lot of times we're talking about violence against women. We forget about the impact on children.
Yes.
And if we don't address this, that's what's going to happen. It's a vicious cycle. We're going to see another generation of Fijians perpetuating violence against women and girls, and it'll go on and on. So education sector is also a very important stakeholder in this, and we're strengthening our partnership as well with the education sector to deal with it at that level with children.
When you say the education center, are you talking about schools?
Education
Should there be
sector. Yes.
sector?
Yes.
Sorry. Right, so are you going to introduce programs into the schools which starts at the grassroots level of 5 years old, and saying, putting in programs that are easy to understand that this is not right, and if your father does that to your mother, this is where you can report it?
We're already talking to the Ministry of Education about this, but like I said, it's a multi-sector.
Right.
Education, then you've got faith-based organizations. We all know the impact of faith-based leaders in this country. Somebody, one way or another, will be affiliated to a church or another religious body. Again, we're looking at those sectors that have a huge impact on human values and that people actually listen to. These are the places that we're trying to partner with to talk about violence against women.
Is it more prevalent in any particular sector, or in terms of is it more in the rural areas or the urban areas?
There are hotspots. If we looked at the Fiji Women's Crisis Center report, it identified these hotspots, not only the geographical areas, but also ethnicities.
Right.
So it's a report, and we're looking forward to the next 2 years where they will run another survey to see whether things have changed since they came up with the first one.
Yes. I heard you made a statement on social media, but we'll take a little break and we'll come back and we'll talk about that particular statement and just what the solutions are that you think that they are. We'll be back with you on Point in a little while. Welcome back to On Point, where we're talking with Mereseini Vuniwaqa, the Minister for Women, and myself, Ellen Whippy-Knight. We left with the conversation about social media and the level of abuse on women. Yes, there was a statement that you'd made on social media, and it had to do with the value of women's lives being devalued because of this domestic violence. I mean, when you're hit by somebody and you've not given them permission to do that, first was disrespectful, mostly it's hurtful, but the other thing is it makes you feel like nothing. I literally have been through that in my life, as a lot of people have. Are there more conversations about this? And when you made that statement, what were you saying?
Basically that if you look at the trend of domestic violence in this country, leading to the death of women, and when you look at the reasons given by the perpetrator for why he did that, that's why I said that statement. Our lives have basically been reduced to a text message, or maybe you didn't cook food at the right time, those kind of things. And it's leading to the death of women. It's some
very simple reasons, isn't it,
Exactly. And that's what we have come to as a nation,
yes.
Basically, if you look at the circumstances surrounding the death of women. One recently, where the lady, I think it was just last week, an allegation that she was killed at a workplace. Now, what do we do? What do we do as a country? The conversation needs to take place. So far, if you look at people who are talking about violence against women, Ellen, you will find that it's mostly women who are talking about it. More men need to talk about it. I'm glad that I have a Prime Minister who talks about it. But I need to see more religious bodies, the heads of religious organizations. I had the opportunity to go to an annual conference, I think it was 2 weeks ago, with the CMF and the New Methodist Church. Their leader was very passionate about it, and he spoke out. More people in positions of influence and power need to talk about it.
I'm smiling because, and that's not a smile of it's a smile of disbelief. Yes, those men need to, those men, head of the CMF Church needs to talk about it, but how do we get the perpetrators or the would-be perpetrators or the potentials to talk about it? Is there a men's group? Are there groups of men that go out? I just don't know. There's got to be, what's your solution for it?
As a ministry, we're working towards a national primary prevention strategy.
Right.
And one of the components of this will be working with men and boys. basically using men and boys to advocate
Great.
against violence.
Great.
So I think the way we are culturally as a people, men tend to listen more to men than to women. So if men were to come up with this message,
Yes.
particularly men with influence in positions of power, more men might be
Yes.
ready to listen to them and do something about it.
Yeah, I think that hits home. That it probably is the thing to do, and as well as that the school educational programs to start the campaigns, very young. Part of your role is you're looking after the disabilities and aged care. And one thing I heard on the radio on Father's Day, and I think it was on Communications Fiji Limited, was that some of the centres were saying that there were fathers in those places that had been deposited there or dropped there by their children many years ago and had never been back to see them, let alone on Father's Day. I can't believe that our community, which is where we have the extended family system, that people can do that.
Ellen, it's the reality. If you go into the state homes that we have, the 3 state homes, that story is very common amongst the residents that are in there. We've got stories of children.
Is that because you can't track the children of the parent that's in the old people's home?
Some of the children live overseas, and
Right.
their parents lived with them. They put them on the plane, send them to Fiji on the pretext of a wedding or something, that somebody will wait for them. And they get here and there's nothing, so the state takes them in.
Right.
There are a lot of sad stories like that in those homes.
The
For
world is
others,
changing.
their children still live in this country, but they don't visit.
So the government pays for that.
Yes,
Right.
the government pays for all of that, but if you look at the census statistics, the last census that we had, we are going to become an aged society in about 20, 30 years' time. So we've got to prepare ourselves. How are we going to do this? The state cannot be the sole responsibility, bearing the responsibility of looking after the aged in society. So the long-term strategy for us is to empower communities. Whatever culture you come from in Fiji, we have this in common. We look after the elderly in our own families.
Right.
Where has that gone?
Exactly.
What's changed? Because children are now living in urban areas, they think that they don't have a responsibility anymore to their
And
parents?
people are living longer.
Yes, people
these
are
days. They're living longer than they did before, for many reasons. So we definitely do need facilities
Yes.
that are going to be able to take these people in and look after them if their own children won't. The other area that I'm really interested in, and so is the community, is childcare. The abuse of children. There are so many children on the streets at night. We have this growing, concern of drug abuse, children being exposed to it on the streets. What's happening with your ministry when it comes to the abuse of children? And I've heard about child trafficking and just a whole lot of things that never existed before.
We also have the responsibility under the Child Welfare Act. The Director of Social Welfare carries that mandate. So for us, it's so important to be collecting statistics to know the circumstances that have exposed these children to abuse and neglect.
Right.
And we have numbers, we have strategies. We also have a child helpline that children can call up if they're facing some sort of abuse.
What's the helpline number?
1324.
1324?
Yes.
Children's helpline.
Yes.
Right.
So yes, it's again, it's something that government cannot do alone. It needs partnership with non-government organizations, but particularly it also, unfortunately, it speaks volumes about the disintegration of the family unit.
Absolutely.
That is supposed to be the support mechanism for such social issues.
Well, look, you're doing a fabulous job, from a lawyer to politics. we've got to leave it there, but I just want to ask one very quick question. Do you think that we're getting closer to having potentially a female Prime Minister?
Well, I look forward to the day.
Yes.
I know Fiji one day will have a female Prime Minister.
And I hope that that one day comes soon, and I hope that you will be running in contention for that position, because you would do a fantastic job. You've been watching On Point with Ellen Whippy-Knight and the Minister for Women, Mereseini Vuniwaqa. We will see you here again next week, Monday night at 8 o'clock.